Coaster, live in the California area. All the guys know who Greg Hatch is. You know, he's friends with James Gates, who we saw lose or concede, excuse me, in the finals of the Star City Games Standard Open in Los Angeles. He's friends with Matt Sperling, Paul Rietzl. Everybody on the West Coast knows this guy. Oftentimes you're going to see him in PTQ finals. Sometimes he'll win, sometimes he'll lose. I know in his first Pro Tour he ended up making top 25 and cashing. It's been some difficulty for him to actually, you know, clinch a PTQ victory. But for this tournament, again, he qualified last weekend in Oakland by making top 4 with Mono Blue Devotion. Barely made it out here. Took the mega bus over from the San Francisco area on on Thursday night. Slept on the floor once he got in at 4 a.m. And now here he is in the finals of the tournament with the Cloudfin Raptor to start. Here's the thoughts he's from Brown UC, a Frostburn Weird, a Judges Familiar, and a couple islands as we begin the finals.
So this is a pretty weak hand from Greg. He did not mulligan here. And you have to wonder when you're playing this matchup. I think Mono Black Devotion probably has a slight edge here just because of the fact that they can actually interact with the creatures and kind of kill cards like Night Veil Spectre. The other problem is that Thoughtseize is also a card that can be a very problematic card, and Greg had to probably consider that when he considered whether or not he should mulligan his opening hand, because now the Thoughtseize is probably going to take a Frostburn Weird, and Greg is just going to be left with a Cloudfin Raptor in play, and he has one Judge's Familiar. So really not a great start for Greg, but let's see if he can draw his way out of it.
Well, you do draw a card every single turn. There's a Cloudfin Raptor. Now here's double Evolution.
All right, so suddenly he's got a mini army there. And again, Max doesn't have any kind of Shrivel or Wrath effect in his main deck, so those creatures are probably going to be around for the long haul here. And let's see if Greg can draw a Biden Athasa to really kind of lock this game up.
Well, here we go. We got a pack rat on one side. We got a couple flyers on the other. Hatch, I believe, draws a land for the turn. No Night Veil Spectre to continue evolving, so he's going to come in for 3 in the air. It's very important that those are flyers as opposed to ground pounders, because pack rat would just be the old brick wall here. But we are in a racing situation right now.
Oh, wow. And Max drew a Mutavault, so this is going to make it very difficult for Greg to actually race this strategy here. If Max plays Mutavault, he can actually attack with Pack Rat, activate it, make another rat, and now he's threatening to attack for a lot. I believe, if he activates the Mutavault next turn, he can actually attack for 8. So suddenly this race is back in Maxwell's court just because of that one Pack Rat.
Hatch draws his card for the turn. I believe it was a Rapid Hybridization, which is one turn too late. Yep.
So he could take out one of the rats if he needs to in order to kind of it might have an impact on the game, because again, Pack Rat is +1/+1 for each rat in play. So if you kill one of the rats during the attack, you remove that rat from combat, plus you shrink all the other rats. So it might come down to racing. It could help, but again, Gregan is going to be in a tough position here because he only has basically 3 1/1 flyers as the hacker. So
the other thing that he can do, of course, with Rapid Hybridization, you can target his own creature with that. So if he targets a Judge's Familiar, he's going to get a 3/3, which is going to involve both copies of Cloudfin Raptor. So it'll make it so it'll be an attack for 4 in the air, put Brown down to 10. And then it'll have a 3/3 on the ground, which will probably just be on chump blocking duty, and then 2 2/3 flyers, which could potentially evolve maybe a little bit later in the game. So, you know, he needs to kind of look at how the math is going to work out, you know, on his end as this game progresses.
Yeah, so if he wants to Rapid Hybridization his own creature, I agree with you. He probably wants to attack with the Raptors and then go for the Judge's Familiar. The problem with that plan is if Max has a 4th land, he can just attack with both the Pack Rats. If you block with the 3/3, he can activate one of the rats and then activate his Mutavault, so both of those will be 4/4s. So I still think he loses the race if he goes down that if he makes that play.
You see, with his hand in his hair, trying to figure out exactly what he can do to try to win this race. And it's funny because we might see Max Brown play 1 card this game.
Yep.
1 spell and win the game.
Pack Rat is all you need. It's quite the good spell.
Okay, I guess he did cast a Thoughtseize to start. So okay, the 1-2 punch of Thoughtseize Pack Rat.
Thoughtseize Pack Rat, that did it. So let's see here. We're gonna get an attack from Greg. The other option he has is maybe just to hold the Rapid Hybridization and hope that Max tries to get a little aggressive and activate that Mutavault and attack again.
Yep.
But again, as we've read from Zvi Mausch's article on StarCityGames.com, generally the best thing to do is just activate Pack Rat.
Just keep doing it. Just can't stop, won't stop. Keep making Pack Rats until your opponent dies. And if they somehow draw perfect or something to get out of the situation, so be it. But Pack Rat puts on so much pressure. I mean, we're talking about a player at Hatch who's at 18, and we're talking about how he can die in like 2 turns if he's not careful.
And yeah, so if Greg is just attacking for 3 here, there is a chance he might just hybridization his own familiar mid-combat and then block one of the rats, depending on how Max attacks. So, nope. But he's going to go for the play that you suggested here.
Well, I think at this point, because Hatch has taken so long this turn, I think he doesn't have much of a choice to do this, right? Because I think he's given away pretty well that, okay, I have rapid hybridization in my hand. I'm just trying to figure out what to do with it.
Yeah.
You know, by playing that slow and then attacking with the creatures, but you're saying, okay, they haven't dealt damage yet. You know, what else could he possibly have?
Yeah, so it's actually Max not only has a fourth land, I believe, but the fourth land is a Mutavault. So pretty good fourth land for him because, again, both those Mutavaults can pump rats. So I think Max's best line here is probably just play the fourth land, attack with both pack rats, and then if Greg does decide to block, or even if he doesn't, you're going to activate those rats this turn. The question is Max afraid of a card like Cyclonic Rift that can throw off his math? This is still a very close race. He's facing down two flyers. Three flyers.
Thankfully for Max, because they have access to the deck list, he knows that there are no Cyclonic Rifts coming. Hatch's list does have 3 copies of Rapid Hybridization and 2 Domestications, 2 Bidens, and then 1 Jace as far as the spells are concerned.
Oh, wow. So, okay, so for a second I thought he was casting Night Veil Spectre, but it looks like he is going to just activate Rat, attack, and then pump. So that brings Greg down to 10 because the Mutavault is also a Rat, so both pack rats attacking were 4/4s.
Not sure what Hatch drew for the turn.
Yeah, I know he has. I think he had mostly. I think he had all lands in his hand.
He just had lands coming into this turn.
So now he could potentially attack for 7. We'll see if Max decides to block there because again he has 2 Mutavaults. So if he activates both Mutavaults and attacks with his even just 2 rats, that would be 12 damage. So Greg would be dead from even just. He would have to chump block one of the pack rats. So yeah, he's going to need at least 1 chump blocker if he didn't draw a creature for the turn.
So let's see. Hatch is thinking to himself, okay, can I afford to attack here? What does that do for me? But if I have to play defense, am I even winning at this point? Is this a Master of Waves, maybe?
Oh, Master would be...
This is a Biden. Okay, this is a Biden of Thassa.
So here's the thing. He's trying to think how many creatures he can swing in with. It's not many. I think maybe... Because, again, unless Max decides to block and chump block with the rat that he has, I don't think Greg can afford to attack with more than 1, if at all any. So it looks like he came to that same conclusion, and maybe we're going to just see the Cloudfin Raptor come over and draw him a card for the turn.
Now the problem with this, of course, is that if he's on blocking duty, I'm not sure he's on winning duty.
Yeah, and yeah, it looks like that Cloudfin Raptor is going to come over, and he is going to be forced to chump block for the turn and lose 2 of his creatures here. So yeah, like you said, if this deck is blocking at this point, it's not going to be in a good shape for you. So, and a 5th land for Max means he can activate one of the Mutavaults, attack with his team, and then still activate another pack rat and get 1 into play.
And the other thing he can do is just, as well as he can, as you see him separate his lands, is he can just go, you know, attack with my 3 rats, discard, activate Mutavault, and that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rats in play. And I think we might see that. He also has
a Hero's Downfall as well. So let's see if he wants to go after the creature.
All right. So now he's going to... Ooh, is this a Rapid Hybrid that Hatch drew? That would be mighty interesting.
Yeah, so he drew the Bident for the turn, and he did get another draw. So we're going to get an activation of Mutavault and attack with all 4 creatures here.
Yep. And Max says, that's how big my creatures are, and that is going to be it. So Max Brown is going to win game number 1 here over Gregory Hatch, the 3 seed, even though he was on the draw that game. The power of Thoughtseize plus Pack Rat is shown in that game. He does win game number 1 over Mono Blue Devotion. As we're going to bring it back here to the booth, I'm going to let you explain the trivia rules, and I'll have the question for our 12 months of premium.
Okay, so we're going to be asking a trivia question in between each of our top 8 matches. So we're also going to have the Legacy Open later on. So during the top 8 of that, we'll give you more trivia. But for now, this is going to be a trivia question for 12 months of Star City Game Premium membership. And if you have the answer, you know, just tweet at us at SCG Live with the hashtag SCG Premium. Again, speed doesn't matter.
Nope.
You know, just make sure you tweet us an answer, and we will select a random winner and provide you with 12 months of Star City Game Premium. So why don't you give them a trivia question there?
All right, pretty easy one. Next year in quarter 1, we're going to start the first weekend of the year, the question for the SCG Live Open Series is where are we going to be the first weekend of the year? Where's the first show going to be for 2014? You name the city that we're going to be in and hashtag your answer with the hashtag of SCG Premium. And again, we will select one winner from the people who do get it correct. So it's about accuracy, not speed. And we will announce the winner at the conclusion of our finals match between Max Brown and Gregory Hatch.
Yep, should be good.
Yeah, and we're going to bring it back to that match right now. We're going to take a look at the sideboards here. As Hatch is down a game, is the 1 seed. Again, Max Brown right now, he's 7-0.
Yep.
In the elimination rounds. He has not lost a game with Mono Black Devotion.
Mono Black Devotion just chugging along. Let's see, it won the Standard Open. Can we get another Mono Black Devotion champion here at the Invitational? We'll see. But, you know, he definitely has to be feeling good because Mono Black Devotion generally has a good matchup against Mono Blue Devotion.
And you take a look at Hatch's sideboard, he doesn't have a ton of cards to bring in. 4 copies of Gainsay, 2 Domestication, 2 Jace Memory Adept, 2 Jace Architect of Thought, 3 Ratchet Bomb, 2 Essence Scatters. So cards that he can bring in here, obviously not Gainsay. Domestication, which Hatch has 2 of in his main deck. You know, how do you like this card in this matchup? It can take a Pack Rat, but will be too late to take the Pack Rat. It can take a Night Veil Spectre, which isn't so bad either. But how many of those do you want? Do you want any of them at all? He's got Jace Memory Adept, which is more for the control matches, as we saw last match against Shaheen Cerrone. He's got 2 Jace Architect of Thoughts to go along with his first one in his main deck, but how good is that in this matchup? That seems to be a little bit more aggressive and not as controlling. He has 3 copies of Ratchet Bomb, which do take care of Pack Rat, but you got to get it up to 2 first, and then 2 copies of Essence Scatter, which can take care of Pack Rat, but if you draw it at the wrong time, it won't be so good. So how would, you know, any tips on how you would sideboard if you were Hatch here?
Well, in general, and based on, you know, how I've seen Sam Black sideboard for this matchup in the past, Tidebinder Mage is obviously the weakest card in your main deck, so those are probably coming out, along with some number of Master of Waves, because you can't reliably expect them to survive anyway, so probably 2 copies of Master of Waves, so that's 6 cards. Jace Architect of Thought is the same thing. While it can provide you with cards, that's not really what you need in this matchup necessarily. Biden Athasa is obviously very good, but Jace, not sure if Jace is really ideal in this matchup, so I think those 7 cards are probably cards that you'd want to take out. As far as what you want to bring in, I definitely kind of like the Domestications because being able to take a Night Veil Spectre can be huge. Obviously, it's another way to take a Pack Rat, and so that gives you some options there. Same time, I also like Ratchet Bomb. I think Ratchet Bomb is another way for you to deal with Pack Rat, and you have much less 2-drops in your deck because you're boarding out the Tidebinder Mages, so there's not going to be as much of a risk of you losing some of your own permanents. So I kind of like the Ratchet Bomb as an out to Pack Rat, and 2 copies of Essence Scatter. I actually kind of like that card as well, just because, you know, Desecration Demon can be an issue for this deck, and again, along with Night Veil Spectre as well. So I kind of like Essence Scatter as well as a way to counter cards like Night Veil Spectre and Desecration Demon, along with the aforementioned Pack Rat. So if I were Greg, I'd consider bringing in those 7 cards for 4 Tidebinder Mages, 2 Master Waves, and maybe 1 Jace Architect of Thought.
On the Mono Black Devotion side of things, a sideboard that's very reminiscent to what Owen Turtenwald won Grand Prix Albuquerque with. And if you remember, Turtenwald did defeat Sam Pardee in the finals playing Mono Blue Devotion. We take a look at Maxwell Brown's sideboard of 3 Lifebane Zombie, 4 Dark Betrayal, a Doomblade, 3 copies of Farika's Cure, an Erebos, God of the Dead, and 3 copies of Duress. How would you want to do things here?
Well, obviously, Doomblade is a very important card. It allows you to kill Master Waves. It allows you to kill some of the flyers that you can't have some difficulty dealing with. Kills Frostburn weird. So I like bringing in the Doomblade. Duress is another card that I think you don't love in this matchup because, you know, you're playing against a creature-heavy deck, and a lot of times that card can actually just be a miss. But I think because of how good cards like Domestication and Biden Athasa are against you, I think it's actually a concession that you kind of need to make.
Okay.
So I think you might have to board in a couple of copies of Duress there. Farika's Cure is another card that's kind of interesting because sometimes just being able to go after Cloudfin Raptor or Judge's Familiar is useful, but again, there's not really that many targets for a Farika's Cure, so I expect them to probably just bring in maybe a Doomblade and a couple of copies of Duresses. I don't think you really need to go overboard.
All right, well, Hatch is going to be on the play here as he did lose the first game. We'll see, starting off with a Mutavault. Interesting.
It's going to be a turn to attack for 2.
I wouldn't love to be in that spot if I were Hatch. That also means no Night Veil Spectre on turn 3.
Yeah, that's the big thing, but maybe he'll have one of the powder cakes he boarded in. But no, it looks like he's just going to attack for 2 here. So yeah, you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah.
You know? You got to take the draws your deck gives you sometimes.
And I don't think you can afford to make an attack here on this turn with Mutavault.
Yeah, I have to expect him to have a Thassa. I can't imagine he would keep a hand like this. No 1-drop, no 2-drop without a Thassa. So,
Yep.
yep, that's what we see here. A Thassa is going to come down. And obviously, that's a huge card in this matchup. Allows him to scry to make sure he doesn't minimize his land flooding, make sure he gets the cards he needs, and keep the action going for his deck. So that's a huge card for him. Maxwell really doesn't have an answer to Thassa, God of the Sea. Obviously, indestructibility, difficult for Mono Black to deal with. Devour Flesh could theoretically get it, but that's very difficult.
Yeah, that would be pretty tough to do.
Greg would basically need like a Biden Athasa in play and like a Jace Architect and no other creatures.
Temple of Deceit going to come into play there for Brown as he just passed the turn back. He's off to a very slow start as opposed to the last game where we saw the old Thoughtseize plus Pack Rat 1-2 punch. Hatch is going to, looks like tap 4 mana here, maybe deploy some more things to the board after he did scry with Thassa on his upkeep.
Yeah, if he goes turn 3 Thassa, turn 4 Biden, he's got to be really happy right now, especially if Max has 0 pressure on the board. The only card he would have to be concerned with is Desecration Demon.
Okay. Here's a Master Waste for just 2 Devotion, so not all that great here. See, Brown does shuffle his hand around a little bit. I'd be surprised if this lives. And yeah, there's a Freakus here to take care of that very easily. So Brown will move up a couple of life points. The elemental tokens will go bye-bye, and Brown's going to untap and draw his card. There's a Thoughtseize to get the show started.
So wow, yeah. So there you see that domestication. That's going to get gone, and he just left with a rapid hybridization, which will likely have to go after a Night Veil Spectre.
Now, Brown could have just slammed down a Desecration Demon that turn, but he chose not to. He wanted to get the discard spell out there, see exactly what Hatch was working with, and then deploys a Night Veil Spectre. He still has the Demon in his hand, also has a Freakus Cure and a Grey Merchant of Asphodel to go along with the Devour Flesh, as Hatch is going to draw his card. Looks to be a Frostburn Weird for the turn.
So not a bad draw for Greg. He's a little closer to activating his Thassa, but again, the cards that really matter in this matchup are Domestication and Biden and Thassa, as well as Thassa itself. So Thassa alone is good, but you're going to need a little help here. And let's see, Frostburn Weird comes down. It looks like he does have an island, so he can play an island and still have a hybridization up if he chooses to go after the Night Veil Spectre, which he'll likely do on Max's turn, so the 3/3 will be able to attack.
Yeah, I mean, does he want to take care of that? How much does he care about the Spectre, or does he want to save it for maybe a card like Desecration Demon?
My big fear here is if you let the Night Veil Spectre attack, considering that Max already has a Temple of Deceit in play, there's a chance that he might be able to hit a Thassa or a Master of Veil and then be able to cast it. And again, he could hit hybridization in response in mid-combat, but still, I think you'd rather just do it now before you take damage.
All right, so Rapid Hybridization is going to take care of the Night Veil Spectre. 3/3 Frog Lizard coming into play for Brown, and now he's going to decide what he wants to play here. Going to start off with a Mutavault.
Yeah, so knowing that the hybridization is gone, knowing that Frostburn Weird was the draw for the turn because he thought his last turn, the Desecration Demon is free to come down.
Yeah, and that's what he's going to play. Desecration Demon, the 6/6 going to come in, and now Hatch is going to begin his turn by, as usual, scrying with Thassa.
Max has 3 cards in his hand. It looks like another Freakus Cure along with a Grey Merchant.
Draw step here for Hatch. He puts the top card on the bottom. We know he's got a Mutavault over there. The other question is, what's the other card?
So it looks like a Night Veil Spectre here.
That turns on Devotion.
Yeah, that turns on Devotion here. So not a bad card. It'll allow him to attack with Thassa if he chooses, as well as potentially go in the air next turn, but he'll have to sacrifice a creature to tap down that Desecration Demon.
Yeah, he's got 3 Mutavaults as bait, so I wonder what he wants to do this turn. If he wants to maybe sacrifice a Mutavault so that he can attack by the Desecration Demon with Thassa, or if he's going to use the Mutavaults defensively so the Desecration Demon can't get into the red zone.
Yeah, I think he's okay with just passing. I don't think he wants to be aggressive here. He really is not in a good position to do anything. And Maxwell did draw a Hero's Downfall, so that's going to take out the Night Veil Spectre and turn off Thassa. So let's see if we're going to see a tap down of Desecration Demon now. I think Greg was fine with taking a hit from a demon before, but now he might want to just tap it down with one of his Mutavaults.
This is kind of a beating right now, too, because Max is going to put Desecration Demon's effect on the stack, and if Hatch were to activate a Mutavault and say, I'd like to attempt to sacrifice this, Max has a Freakus Cure to kill that Mutavault, and then he'd have to sacrifice another Mutavault if he wants to stick with that game plan. Either way, in for 6 comes Brown. Thassa's going to put the top card on the bottom.
We're going to need a Biden and a Thassa here.
That's
right
going to be
away.
an important one. Well, Hatch is tapping 4 mana.
Let's see here.
Is this a
So
Master of Waves?
yeah, 3 colorless and a blue.
That
Looks
is a
like it's
Master.
master.
Unfortunately for Hatch, it's just not going to have a huge impact on the game because Brown does have another removal spell for the Master in Farika's Cure. So 4 Elementals are going to come into play momentarily, but they're going to leave shortly.
Yeah, and that's why Master Waves, usually you don't want to keep in all 4 in this matchup because it's really, it's unlikely it's going to stick around for very long.
Hatch is going to pass the turn back. Immediately, Farika's Cure is going to take care of the Master of Waves. So there goes that and all of its tokens.
So you're not going to be able to use any of those tokens to tap down the demon, unfortunately. And now with Greg at 14, that demon's going to start doing some heavy lifting. What is Greg going to do this turn? Because Maxwell still has that Gray Merchant in his hand, so that's another 4-point life swing there.
I tell you, this is where things get really, really difficult, and you can see exactly how powerful the mono black deck can be. Because again, this game doesn't even involve pack rat. This is like a different game completely. Sure, Thoughtseize was cast in this game, but this is a game of just removal and efficient threats.
Yeah, it's Desecration Demon is very, very difficult for the mono blue deck to beat that card as well, just because it blocks your whole team, including Thassa even, if they don't activate it. And at the same time, you don't have a lot of creatures that you can afford to just sacrifice it and tap it each turn. So it's a very difficult card to race, and they really don't have any way to interact with it other than rapid hybridization.
So the trigger's put on the stack for Desecration Demon, and Hatch says, that's fine, go ahead and deal me 6, which Brown will do. Put Hatch down to 8. As you mentioned, there is a Gray Merchant in the hand for Brown, so he could play that right now and have it be a drain for 4, and that would put Hatch down to 4 and Brown up to 24 if he wants to do that.
Yeah, I like holding it, though, just because Greg might think that he's safe for a turn, and then you might just be able to kill Greg next turn. But we'll see what he's going to do. Maybe he might want to just put the pressure on Greg so that Greg is forced to start sacking creatures right away.
It also makes it so the next Gray Merchant is lethal if he ever draws it.
That's true, yeah. So Greg goes down to 4 here, and he's going to scry for the turn.
See, now, oddly enough, Master of Waves is actually pretty good. But, you know, the first 2 died. Now he needs to find the 3rd copy of it, and that's only because Brown doesn't have a removal spell, and Brown can draw a removal spell.
Yep, so Greg decides to keep the card.
Spectre.
And it is a Night Veil Spectre here, so that will turn on Thassa.
Red
and it
zone.
looks like Thassa's entering the red zone.
Well, he can't sit here forever, right?
Yeah. Well, Greg has 3 copies of Mutavault that he can use to kind of sacrifice to tap down the Desecration Demon, and he does have 2 blockers for both the 3/3 and the 2/4 Gray Merchant. So
trigger goes onto the stack for Desecration Demon. Mutavault's going to get activated.
Max does have a Devour Flesh in his hand, so he could respond with the Devour Flesh. But again, with 3 Mutavaults, Greg is going to be safe at this turn.
Yep. So Hatch says, I will activate a Mutavault in response to your Desecration Demon trigger. May I sacrifice? Well, there is the Devour Flesh that you mentioned.
So Greg is basically going to be forced.
That's in response to the Mutavault activation.
Yeah, so Greg is basically forced to activate another Mutavault if he wants to. Or he can just sacrifice. Oh, yeah, so he's going to have to act. He's thinking about activating again.
He's got to sacrifice a Mutavault. I don't think he has much of a choice because if he sacrifices a blue creature, then Devotion's gone, and he needs that Devotion to be able to win this game.
Yeah, plus those are 2 really good blockers right here, facing a 1/4 facing down a 3/3 and a 2/3 facing down a 2/4. So, yeah, definitely going to activate another Mutavault, just thinking about what Max could have in his hand. But again, we know what Max's hand is. It's just a swamp, so he should be safe to just activate another Mutavault here.
And one of the more important things here, too, for Hatch is because of Devour Flesh, he's actually going to gain some life back. So right now he's at 4, but he's going to go up to 6, which means he can actually afford to take some amount of damage here from an attack. Obviously, you don't want to take a ton because, you know, there's the chance of Gray Merchant and everything else that Max can draw. He's going to sacrifice that Mutavault to take care of that. But it's a step in the right direction, at least, as Hatch moves up to 6 life.
Yeah, so Max doesn't have a good attack now, and Greg is going to scry again. And let's see here. It's possible. Yeah, Master Waves would obviously be huge now because Max has no cards left. I still think Bident is okay here. Night Veil Spectre could potentially attack and get a card for Greg, although, again, he can't really cast anything. And I don't think either player have Nykthos Shrine to Nyx, so it's not really going to be that. He's basically going to have to hit like swamp removal spell.
Oh boy, he's getting real aggressive.
So he must have drawn possibly another Frostburn Weird here would be good. or the best thing would be obviously Master
Yeah,
Wave. So
Master is number 1.
let's see. Greg's going to attack with both. Looks like Thassa and Night Veil Spectre. That's 7. That could drop Maxwell down to 12. And Master Waves could suddenly just mean that Greg is lethal next turn, potentially.
Mm-hmm. Mutavault activation. Looks like that's going to be on. Maybe that's going to block here. Because I think that Brown realizes what Hatch is trying to do is he's trying to like, whittle away his life as much as he can and cut the draw steps that Brown can have to win this game while also maximizing his draws via Scry so that he can maybe slam down that 3rd Master or something of that nature.
Yeah, I don't think he thinks Mutavault is going to be that much of a factor this game. Plus, he doesn't want to chump block with a Gray Merchant because a 2nd Gray Merchant is still lethal for him with Greg at 6.
Begs the question, the longer that we go, who does this game favor? It seems like Max would want to play more turns, but at the same time, when you've got a Thas out there that's active and scrying, I don't know who wants to play more turns in this game.
Yeah, well, Maxwell, Max has a lot of live draws. Even a removal spell would be pretty good for him right here because if we're assuming that Greg's draw for the turn was a Master of Waves, then suddenly his plan goes right out the window. So we'll see. And even being able to take out that Night Veil Spectre turns off his devotion.
So Brown's going to take 7. He's going to turn over a Swamp.
That was a good hit. That's what we needed. We were going to say, like, runner would have to be Swamp removal spell.
So that Swamp's going to come into play. And Hatch is going to pass a turn back, so this smells like a Rapid Hybrid. Brown's going to draw a card. He's got a Swamp in his hand.
Well, he doesn't even need a Rapid Hybridization here because he just needs to tap that down. Max can attack with both creatures, but then that's still not lethal because Greg's at 6, so he could still block the 3/3 and just take 2 from Gray Merchant. So he doesn't necessarily have a creature. He just needs to make sure that Desecration Demon gets tapped out.
Going to activate Mutavault, sacrifice that to Desecration Demon. Okay. Any beatdowns to be had here? Activating Mutavaults. Looks like the answer is yes, there are some beatdowns to be had here.
So let's see. Does Max have a follow-up after this? Because
I
the
think
most Greg could attack for would be 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, dropping Max to 2. So
I think Brown's hand right now is Swamp.
yes.
I think. I really want to know what Hatch's hand is here. That's the big question for me.
Yeah, because hybridization would be huge, but it's because it would allow him to. Yeah, if it is hybridization, that's actually perfect. Because if Max tries to go out for an attack here, then he just blocks the 3/3 with the Frostburn Weird, takes 4, drops to 2. Then he could just hybridization his Thassa, get a 3/3, and go lethal. But it looks like Max did draw a creature, and it's a Night Veil Spectre. So good draw there for Max.
Here's some beatdowns.
And 1/4 is going to jump in front of the 3/3, and Greg is going to take 2, dropping to 4. And here comes that Night Veil Spectre.
All right.
So Max has a Night Veil Spectre and a Mutavault that can potentially block next turn.
Hatch is at 4. No more Mutavaults to sacrifice either, so he might have to turn off his devotion. If he's got more Master Waves in his deck, now would be the time.
So we're in his draw step. He's contemplating whether or not he wants to keep this card with Scry. If he keeps it, I imagine we're going to see at least one more turn for him. But let's see if he decides to ship it. It looks like he's doing math here, trying to figure out if he wants to win, if he can win this race. So that's a good sign for him. And yep, he did draw. It looks like it's a Frostburn Weird.
He kept an island.
No, I think he.
He has an
maybe
island in his hand.
Maybe it's Cyclonic Rift. Oh, okay. So yeah, he doesn't have any Cyclonic Rifts in his deck. So he has at least an island in his hand. So it looks like we're thinking about a Thassa activation here. So if he activates Thassa on the Night Veil Spectre, I don't think he can win this race just by activating. He needs something else here.
I'm very curious as to why. So when he scryed last turn, he kept the island because he kept the top card and he drew island.
Okay, so I think his plan here is to drop Max down to 7 with Thassa, activate Thassa, make my. Okay, so he's going to drop him down to 10 here.
Attack with Spectre.
Make Spectre unblockable.
So he needs something irrelevant off the top right now. That's a Swamp.
Swamp. That's again. That's actually a good hit because next turn if he can get a Gray Merchant, then suddenly that's going to be
Yeah,
huge for
if
him.
we
But
get to a next turn.
yeah, if we get to the next turn.
There's a Frostburn Weird. So now what he's going to have to do on his turn for hatches, he's going to have to sacrifice Nightveil Spectre to Desecration Demon to keep it tapped down, but he can keep Devotion because of double Weird and the Thassa, and Thassa's going to make it so the attacking is pretty poor, but Nightveil Spectre will be able to get in for a hit. Now here's a Doomblade here from Max Brown, and I think that might clinch it now as Max is going to go through the motions here.
Yeah, Doomblade takes care of the Weird. Nightveil Spectre gets sacked.
Yep, and so that's going to die. That's going to get tapped.
He's left with only 2 blockers and 4 attackers, so yep.
Doomblade kills
should
that,
be
and that's going to do it. So Max Brown with the Doomblade off of the top is going to win this second game between him and Gregory Hatch in the finals of our Invitational. Mono Black Devotion up 2-0, and Brown has still not lost a game in these elimination rounds.
Yeah, and it was a valiant start for Greg. I mean, you saw how Thassa was doing a lot of work. A timely Thoughtseize, though, from Max allowed him to take that domestication, and that was huge. Otherwise, the whole game probably changes because I mean, those Desecration Demons, that Desecration Demon did some heavy lifting, but I don't know. Domestication on a Nightveil Spectre suddenly turns on your Thassa much sooner, and the race was a lot closer than I think we thought it would be.
Yeah, I mean, that game was a lot closer. I mean, Hatch had to get aggressive with his Thassa, so I think he gave himself the best opportunity to try to win that game because he can't just sit back forever because that just gives Brown time to draw, a card like Pack Rat, an additional Desecration Demon, removal spell, Gray Merchant, what have you. So he can't sit around and just wait. So I think he got appropriately aggressive, wasn't able to chain that into a victory, but definitely gave himself what I feel is the best opportunity to try to win that game.
Yeah, he definitely he had outs that game, and if Max bricked again and just drew a land for the turn, I think he at least gets another turn, and can try to draw into something. But yeah, so Max Brown moves up to 2-0, and I wouldn't say it's a huge surprise, just because in general I think the consensus is Mono Black Devotion should be favored against Mono Blue Devotion.
Yeah, I mean, the matchup does feel close, and definitely Mono Blue does have some cards that can turn things in its favor, like Biden of Thassa, like Nightveil Spectre, if it can connect and hit the necessary cards. Thassa is obviously great against every deck in this format. But I think I'm with you in which, Mono Black Devotion just has some incredibly powerful cards, and it has some I-win draws, as we saw in game number 1 with Thoughtseize and Pack Rat.
Well, it's basically a toss-up, right? Because Mono Black Devotion is probably the better of the 2 Devotion decks when you're playing them against each other. However, you would guess Mono Blue Devotion probably has a slightly better matchup against, the really hyper-aggressive decks out there like White Weenie or Mono Red. So it really depends on what you think the metagame is going to be. If you think it's going to be, a lot of control and a lot of Mono Blue Devotion, Mono Black Devotion is probably your best bet, which is why I think it's had so much success lately, because that is basically what the metagame is.
Yeah.
It's Mono Blue, Mono Black, and Sphinx of Revelation decks. So obviously Mono Black Devotion, that's probably why it's just the most dominant deck in the format right now.
And certainly some of the appeal of Mono Black Devotion, too, is that this is the deck that is, kind of curb stomps the decks that people are trying. Shroud's deck, for example, just a green-white aggro deck, what's a metagame deck? Yeah, Mono Black just seems like it would destroy that kind of deck. Oh, your deck's all creatures? I mean, sure, Skylash Rose Pro Blue. I don't care. It's dead. Mistcutter Hydra. It's dead too. Like you're playing a pretty fair deck, even though you're trying to play, a metagame type deck. And credit to Shroud, of course. He made top 4 of the tournament and had a lot of success in Standard. But this is the kind of deck that just keeps, these metagame decks and some decks that people are trying, just keeps them honest. They probably fail the test of trying to beat this kind of deck.
Yeah, and even the aggressive decks that kind of can have an okay matchup against Mono Black Devotion, cards like Farika's Cure and Shrivel out of other versions can even put an end to that nonsense either too. So it's a very difficult deck to beat because of, it has the best removal spell in Hero's Downfall. It can go after creatures, and if you don't have any creatures in your deck, you're going to have Planeswalkers, so it can go after those. And it also has Thoughtseize, which can just go after anything. And if you keep a questionable hand, then Thoughtseize can really punish you. So in game 1, we kind of saw Greg keep a hand of Frostburn Weird, Cloud Raptor, and Judge's Familiar, and then a Thoughtseize made that hand much, much worse. So it just goes to show you the power of Mono Black is really not just a pack rat, but cards like Thoughtseize and Hero's Downfall.
Yeah. So we're going to go into a third game here between Hatch and Brown. Don't forget, at the conclusion of this match, as we do crown a champion, we'll be announcing our 12-month premium winner. We've also got our Legacy Open taking place behind us. A lot of big names playing that tournament, like Huey Jensen, Owen Turtenwald, Reed Duke, and company. So be sure to stay tuned for that, because we're making our way there. But right now, we turn our focus to game number 3 here. Can Max Brown make it a perfect 9-0 through the elimination rounds? Or will Greg Hatch be able to take one and try to rally back here?
Yeah, if Greg is able to draw an average of 2 cards a turn this game, I think he's got a good shot. So let's root for a Biden Athasa to enter play here.
Okay.
And there was a couple turns in that game where it really looked good for Greg. He went turn 3 Thassa. Max didn't have any plays, and if he dropped a Biden there, it could have been huge for him because every other play would be great for him. But wasn't able to get there, and now it looks like he's going to have to mulligan down to 6 in this game.
A quick mulligan, and Brown is that's about as close as a snap keep as you can get.
Yeah.
To me, he looks at his 7 red flick,
yeah.
and he's just like, "Yep, there it is."
Brown looks happy. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's probably 6 lands pack rat for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it might be 5 lands Thoughtseize pack rat. If that's the case, it might be good enough.
Yeah, five. I think if it was 5 lands Thoughtseize pack rat, he would literally be like giddy right now.
Yeah. Nice focus. You can see
Very
he's zoned in.
focused.
Hey, he wants to win this tournament. $10,000 for first place.
Yeah, that's not, that's some walking around money over there.
Yeah.
So Greg Hatch is forced to go down to 6 in this deciding game here. Game 3, Max Brown up 2-0. Greg's back is against the wall here. Let's see if this 6-card hand is keepable. And no, wow.
Boy.
So Max,
Oh boy.
So Greg Hatch is going to have to go down to 5 cards, and I'm going to have to change my estimate here. I'm going to say he's going to need to draw an average of 3 cards a turn now for him to have a chance. So let's see. Greg Hatch mulligan to 5 here. Max Brown still content with his 7. So what kind of hand can Greg sculpt here and off of 5? I mean, there's still plenty of cards, like 1 drop, 2 drop, 3 drop.
I mean, it's gonna have to be a hand that revolves around Thassa, maybe a Night Veil Spectre or something like that. The problem with this, obviously, is that when you mulligan at 5 and you get Thoughtseized, yikes.
Yeah, let's hope that, for Greg's sake, let's hope that Max's hand does not have a Thoughtseize in it, because that's just a nightmare scenario here. But Greg Hatch looking at his 5 card hands, and he is okay. And here, step 1, 1 drop.
He's got a duress. Okay, he's thumbing for a
Wow.
Thoughtseize. Domestication, and Night Veil Spectre. It's gonna have to be runner. Nothing's funner.
So yes, Thoughtseize takes out a domestication, a Night Veil Spectre rather, and Greg bricks on a land for that turn.
Freakus Cure is the draw here for Brown, and if you're Max Brown, and I know you've won a Pro Tour, you can sense it now.
Yeah, he kind of feels, all right, just be calm, just collect yourself. You're in good shape. Don't make any mistakes. You don't really need to duress here. You probably want to just cure and pass. I think you probably want to cure on it. You should have cured on his upkeep though, in case he had a hybridization, but he doesn't, and we're going to see a duress here.
Here's a duress, and I don't know if you saw what his draw was for the turn.
Yep, perfect timing here. Perfect sequencing for Max. He's able to take the rapid hybridization and then just drop that pack rat.
Yep. He was going to take a look at domestication and says, okay, I just want to make sure that does cost 4 mana. You're not even close to that.
Okay, so
this is a situation where, again, when you're on the cusp of winning a tournament for $10,000 and some notoriety and everything that comes along with that, you want to be super careful. As here's a pack rat. He takes a domestication, which is a little bit of a surprise to me.
So he didn't take the hybridization there. Interesting. And maybe he thinks he could just win with that. He does have another duress in his hand. It looks like he might have another pack rat.
Aha.
So that's the jig is up. He wanted to just get a 3/3 into play. Now he's going to duress away, probably cast duress again, take that last domestication. There's a Biden.
Hey, you said he needed to draw Biden.
That's true.
Said it.
He did need to draw Biden. Yep. Yes, that is true.
You see, Brown is basically cutting Hatch's outs now, and part of the reason is, again, now, if Hatch were to just run off some lands, he doesn't even have domestications to cast now. There's a pack rat. There's an attack for 3. And Hatch is sitting here with 1 land in play, a Night Veil Spectre and a Biden, so even if he were to draw the lands, it's not going to do it. And Maxwell Brown defeats Greg Hatch 3-0. He is your Star City Games Invitational Champion, 9-0 in the elimination rounds.
9-0 in elimination rounds with Mono Black Devotion. So in the course of around